Why is it that in an age of unprecedented comfort and convenience, our minds have become so fragile? We have access to more information, more technology, and more material wealth than any generation in human history, yet we are plagued by anxiety, distraction, and a gnawing sense of being overwhelmed. We are powerful on the outside, but brittle on the inside. The slightest disruption, a critical email, a market downturn, an unexpected bill, can send us into a spiral. This is the great paradox of modern life. Our external world has become fortified, while our internal world has been left unguarded, exposed to the elements. For years, I lived this paradox. I built a career in the tech industry, a world that worships relentless progress and external validation. I mastered the game. I had the success, the recognition, the financial freedom. From the outside, my life looked like an impenetrable fortress. But inside, I was living in a house of cards. My peace of mind was dependent on the day's stock performance. My self-worth was tied to the latest product launch. My emotional state was a puppet, and the strings were being pulled by 1,000 forces I could not control. The burnout, when it came, was not just a breakdown of my body, it was the complete collapse of my internal operating system. I had built a life on a foundation of sand. Stripped of my external armor, I was forced to look for a different kind of strength, a different kind of material. I didn't find it in self-help gurus or fleeting motivational hype. I found it in the timeless, battle-tested principles of the Stoics, thinkers like Marcus Aurelius, Seneca, and Epictetus. They weren't academics, they were a Roman emperor, a powerful statesman, and a former slave who all wrestled with the same fundamental problem: how to build an inner citadel, a fortress of the mind that could withstand the chaos of the world. They understood that true strength isn't about controlling the world outside of you, but about mastering the world inside of you. This is what I want to share with you. Not a quick fix, but a blueprint. Over the next 21 days, we are going to embark on a project of mental engineering. This isn't about positive thinking or ignoring reality. It's about systematically forging an unbreakable mind using a combination of ancient Stoic practices and the insights of modern neuroscience. Each habit, each micro-practice is a brick. Each day of consistent effort is the mortar that binds them together. By the end of this process, you will have laid the foundation for your own inner citadel. The quick start guide is simple. It begins right now, with a decision. The decision to stop being a passive reactor to life and to start being the deliberate architect of your inner state. Are you ready to begin the work? Are you ready to stop being fragile and start becoming fortified? What if the strength you've been seeking is not something you acquire out there in the world, but is an internal structure waiting to be built? What if the peace you crave isn't found in a perfect life, but in an unbreakable mind? For the first 3 days of our 21-day journey, we begin with the absolute bedrock of Stoic practice, the load-bearing pillar upon which your entire inner citadel will be built. It's a principle so simple it can be stated in a sentence, yet so profound it can take a lifetime to master. The dichotomy of control. Epictetus, a man who went from being a slave to one of the most respected philosophers in Rome, put it this way: some things are within our power, while others are not. Within our power are opinion, motivation, desire, aversion, and, in a word, whatever is of our own doing. Not within our power are our body, our property, our reputation, our office, and, in a word, whatever is not of our own doing. Think about that. Your thoughts, your judgments, your decisions, your actions, these are yours to command. Everything else, the economy, the weather, what other people think of you, whether you get that promotion, the traffic on your commute, is ultimately outside of your control. The primary source of human suffering, anxiety, and frustration is the chronic confusion between these two categories. We exhaust ourselves trying to command the things we cannot, while neglecting the one domain where we have absolute sovereignty, our own mind. From a neuroscience perspective, This is a battle being waged inside your skull every moment of every day. It's the conflict between your prefrontal cortex, the logical, disciplined, executive part of your brain, and your amygdala, the ancient, emotional threat detection system. When you worry about a stock market crash or obsess over a past mistake, your amygdala is hijacking your system. It's flooding you with cortisol and adrenaline, preparing you for a fight-or-flight response to a threat that you cannot fight and cannot flee from, because it exists only as a thought about something you don't control. The practice of the dichotomy of control is the act of training your prefrontal cortex to intervene, to calmly assess the situation, and to remind the amygdala, this is not our battle to fight. I once mentored a young, brilliant trader. He was a wizard with data, but he was an emotional wreck. He lived and died with every tick of the market. A good day meant he was euphoric. A bad day meant he was despairing, irritable, and impossible to be around. He was rich on paper but spiritually destitute. His health was failing. He was trying to control the uncontrollable, the collective fear and greed of millions of strangers. Our work together had nothing to do with trading strategies. It was about drawing a line. We worked on focusing his formidable intellect not on predicting the market, but on mastering his response to the market. He learned to control his analysis, his risk parameters, and his decision to buy or sell. He learned to accept the market's movement as external, like the weather. His profits actually improved, but more importantly, he got his life back. So, here is your practice for days 1 through 3. It's a simple but powerful micro-habit. I call it the control inventory. Find a notebook or use an app. Every time you feel a surge of anxiety, anger, or frustration, stop. Pause for 30 seconds. On one side of the page, write "out of my control." On the other, "within my control." List the elements of the situation under the correct heading. The client's sudden change of mind, out of your control. The flight delay, out of your control. Now, what is in your control? Your calm, professional response. Your decision to use the delay to read a book or prepare for your meeting. Your choice not to make a bad situation worse with a destructive emotional reaction. Focus 100% of your energy on the "within my control" column, and deliberately let go of the other. This is the first, most crucial step in building an unbreakable mind. Ask yourself this as you begin. How much of your daily energy, your precious and finite mental capital, is being wasted fighting battles in the uncontrollable realm? What could you build if all that energy were reclaimed and redirected to where it truly matters? Now that we have established the foundation for our citadel, the dichotomy of control, we move into the architect's studio for days 4 through 7. Here we work on the most powerful tool you possess, the power of perception. The Stoics understood a fundamental truth that modern psychology has since validated. It is not external events that cause us distress, but our judgments and interpretations of those events. As Marcus Aurelius wrote in his private journal, "If you are pained by any external thing, it is not this thing that disturbs you, but your own judgment about it. And it is in your power to wipe out this judgment now." Think of your mind not as a passive mirror reflecting reality, but as an active forge, shaping raw sensory data into a story. The event itself is neutral ore. Your perception is the hammer that shapes it into either a weapon that harms you or a tool that helps you. This isn't about delusion or positive thinking. It's about a disciplined, rational process of cognitive reappraisal. Modern neuroscience shows us that when you consciously choose to reframe a situation, you are literally changing the neural pathways in your brain. You can dampen the amygdala's fear response and engage the prefrontal cortex to find a more empowering, useful interpretation. This is neuroplasticity in action. You are not just changing your mind, you are changing your brain. I learned this lesson the hard way. Early in my first tech venture, we lost our biggest client. It was a crippling blow. representing nearly 40% of our revenue. My initial automatic judgment was, this is a catastrophe. We're finished. Panic set in. The narrative my mind instantly forged was one of failure and ruin. But after the initial shock, years of studying these principles kicked in. I forced myself to pause and challenge that first judgment. I asked, is this story true? Is it the only story? I gathered my team and we deliberately reframed the event. This wasn't a death blow, it was a wake-up call. Our over-reliance on one client was a strategic vulnerability. This event wasn't a punishment, it was a lesson. This disaster became the catalyst for us to diversify our client base, strengthen our sales pipeline, and ultimately build a much more resilient and successful company. The event didn't change. Our perception of it did, and that changed everything. Your practice for days 4, 5, 6, and 7 is to become the architect of your own perception. You will keep a perception journal. Each evening, I want you to write down one event from your day that you labeled as negative, frustrating, or bad. It could be anything: a conflict with a colleague, a project that failed, a traffic jam. Below this event, you must complete 3 sentences. This event could be an opportunity to practice. This event could be a lesson in. Seen from a 10-year perspective, this event will likely be, this exercise forces you to break the habit of automatic negative judgment. It trains your mind to look for the opportunity, the lesson, the bigger picture. The Stoics called this turning obstacles upside down. Ryan Holiday famously distilled it to, the obstacle is the way. You are not denying the difficulty of the event, but you are refusing to be defined by your initial, unthinking reaction to it. You are choosing to forge a tool, not a weapon. As you do this, ask yourself, are you the passive victim of your circumstances, helplessly tossed about by the waves of life? Or are you the active architect of your response, using the very winds that push against you to power your journey forward? For days 8 through 11, we move from the architect's studio to the training ground. An unbreakable mind cannot be built on theory alone. It must be forged in the fire of practice. This phase is about a core Stoic concept that runs counter to our modern obsession with comfort, the practice of voluntary hardship. Seneca, one of the wealthiest men in Rome, advised his friend Lucilius to regularly set aside a certain number of days, during which you shall be content with the scantiest and cheapest fare with coarse and rough dress, saying to yourself the while, is this the condition that I feared? This isn't about self-punishment. It is a calculated and strategic act of mental inoculation. In the same way, a vaccine introduces a small controlled dose of a virus to prepare the immune system for a real attack. Voluntary hardship introduces a small controlled dose of discomfort to prepare your mind for the inevitable and uncontrollable hardships of life. Our culture tells us to seek pleasure and avoid pain at all costs. The result is a mind that is soft, brittle, and terrified of the slightest discomfort. By deliberately and regularly stepping outside your comfort zone, you recalibrate your definition of need and expand your tolerance for adversity. The neuroscience behind this is fascinating. The principle is called hormesis, the idea that a low dose of a stressor can actually trigger a cascade of beneficial adaptations in the body and brain. When you take a cold shower, for example, your body releases norepinephrine, a neurotransmitter that sharpens focus, improves mood, and builds resilience. When you practice intermittent fasting, you trigger cellular cleanup processes and improve metabolic health. You are teaching your nervous system, at a fundamental level, that it can withstand stress and even thrive under it. You are systematically dismantling your fear of discomfort by proving to yourself, over and over, that you can handle it. I saw this transform a mentee of mine, a successful executive who was paralyzed by a deep-seated fear of losing his wealth. He lived in a state of constant, low-grade anxiety about his investments, his job security, his lifestyle. He was a prisoner in a golden cage. I didn't give him financial advice. I gave him a simple prescription. For 1 weekend a month, he had to live on a budget of just $20. No restaurants, no Ubers, no fancy coffees, just the bare essentials. The first time, he was terrified. By the third time, he was laughing about it. He told me, I realized that if I lost everything tomorrow, I'd be fine. Uncomfortable, yes, but I wouldn't break. I'd survive. That realization was more valuable than any stock portfolio. He had faced his greatest fear in a controlled environment and discovered it was a paper tiger. He had decoupled his peace of mind from his bank balance. So, your practice for days 8 through 11 is to choose your own form of voluntary hardship. It should be safe, but uncomfortable. Here are some options. Cold exposure. End your daily shower with 30 to 60 seconds of pure cold water. Focus on controlling your breath and remaining calm. Intermittent fasting. Try a simple 16-8 fast. Stop eating at 8 p.m. and don't eat again until 12 p.m. the next day. Experience and observe the feeling of hunger without being ruled by it. Comfort. Fasting. Give up one of your daily comforts for these 4 days. It could be your morning coffee, sugar, social media, or your favorite chair. The hard way. Deliberately choose the less convenient option. Take the stairs instead of the elevator. Walk instead of driving for a short errand. Carry your groceries instead of using a cart. The goal is not the hardship itself, but your response to it. Observe your mind's resistance. Notice the desire for comfort. And then calmly choose to endure. You are training yourself to be the master of your impulses, not their slave. You are proving that your well-being is not dependent on a perfect, comfortable environment. Ask yourself this: what are the fears that secretly govern your life? Are you willing to face a small, voluntary version of them now, in order to become invincible to them later? As we enter days 12 through 14, we refine our mental toolkit with a practice that is both subtle and incredibly powerful: the discipline of assent. If the dichotomy of control is the foundation and perception is the frame, this discipline is the meticulous work of ensuring the citadel's gates are guarded. It's about managing your first impressions. Epictetus taught that we are disturbed not by things, but by the dogmas, the automatic judgments and beliefs we attach to them. A traffic jam isn't inherently terrible. It's a collection of cars moving slowly. The judgment, "This is terrible. My day is ruined," is an assent, a mental signature you give to that first impression. The discipline of assent is about learning to pause before you sign. Think of your mind as a courtroom. An impression appears before you. My boss didn't say good morning. He must be unhappy with my work. This is the initial testimony. An untrained mind immediately bangs the gavel. Guilty. Panic is justified. The trained mind, the Stoic mind, holds back. It cross-examines the witness. Is this impression accurate? Is it the only possible interpretation? Could there be other reasons? Perhaps he was distracted. Perhaps he had a rough morning. Perhaps it has nothing to do with me at all. You withhold assent from the initial catastrophic judgment until you have examined it with logic and reason. From a neuroscience standpoint, this is the practice of creating a crucial gap between stimulus and response. An event happens, and our brain's limbic system, particularly the amygdala, offers an immediate, often emotionally charged impression. This happens in milliseconds. The practice of withholding assent is the act of engaging the prefrontal cortex to intercept that initial impulse. It's the conscious creation of a cognitive pause, a space where reason can operate before emotion takes over and dictates your reaction. People with short fuses or who are highly reactive have virtually no gap between stimulus and response. Building an unbreakable mind is about widening that gap. I recall a high-stakes negotiation early in my career. The other party made an offer that was, frankly, insulting. My first impression, my raw emotional reaction, was anger and indignation. The story my mind instantly created was, They're trying to cheat us. They don't respect us. The old me would have assented to that judgment immediately, reacting with anger, potentially blowing up the entire deal. But I had been practicing this. I paused. I looked at the impression as if it were an object. I withheld assent. I asked, is this interpretation necessarily true? What if this is just their standard opening tactic? What if this is a test of our resolve? By refusing to sign off on that initial insulted narrative, I was able to respond not with reactive anger, but with calm, firm logic. I simply laid out the data for why their offer was unworkable and presented our counteroffer without emotion. We ended up closing a deal that was very favorable. The key was not being a slave to that first impression. Your micro-practice for days 12, 13, and 14 is to become a vigilant gatekeeper of your mind. Your mantra for these 3 days is, it is not the thing itself, but the judgment about the thing. Whenever you feel a strong emotional reaction brewing, anger, fear, jealousy, offense, I want you to stop and perform a mental 2-step process. 1. Isolate the impression. State the objective fact, stripped of all judgment. Not the traffic is horrible, but there are many cars on the road, and we are moving slowly. Not my colleague snubbed me, but my colleague walked past me without speaking. 2. Challenge the judgment. Question your automatic story. Say to yourself, this is just a first impression, not the thing itself. I will not give it my assent until I have examined it. This isn't about suppressing emotion. It's about ensuring your emotions are responses to reality, not to unchecked and often false initial judgments. You are reclaiming the power to choose your response, rather than letting your primitive brain choose for you. Reflect on this. Are you a slave to your first impressions, allowing them to dictate your emotional state and your actions? Or are you their master, insisting that they submit to the calm scrutiny of reason before they are granted entry into your mind? For days 15 through 17, we expand our perspective. A mind that is trapped in the small, immediate anxieties of the day is inherently fragile. To build an unbreakable mind, we must learn to zoom out, to see our lives and our problems within a much larger context. The Stoics had 2 powerful mental exercises for this: memento mori and the view from above. These practices may sound morbid or abstract, but they are intensely practical tools for cultivating tranquility, purpose, and perspective. Memento mori is not an invitation to be morbid, it's an invitation to be alive. The constant, gentle awareness of our own mortality is the ultimate antidote to triviality. When you remember that your time is finite, the petty annoyances and anxieties that consume so much of your daily energy are revealed for what they are: insignificant. The fear of asking for a raise, the anger at the person who cut you off in traffic, the obsession over a critical comment on social media. These things wither and die in the face of your mortality. As Marcus Aurelius reminded himself, you could leave life right now. Let that determine what you do and say and think. This thought doesn't create fear, it creates clarity. It forces you to ask, is what I am doing right now truly worthy of this fleeting moment of my life? The view from above is a companion practice. It's a guided meditation where you imagine yourself floating up from your current position. You see yourself in your room, then your building, your city, your country. You float higher, seeing the earth as a small blue marble hanging in the vast, silent darkness of space. You see all of human history, the rise and fall of empires, generations being born and turning to dust. From this vantage point, where is the insult you suffered yesterday? Where is the professional setback that feels so all-consuming? They shrink to their true, infinitesimal size. This isn't to say your problems aren't real, but to see them in their proper context, stripping them of their perceived catastrophic power. Neuroscience supports this shift in perspective. When we are stressed or anxious, our focus narrows. This threat narrowing of attention is an evolutionary response designed to help us deal with an immediate physical danger. But in the modern world, it keeps us trapped in loops of worry about non-physical threats. Practices like the view from above activate different parts of the brain, particularly those associated with empathy, abstract thought, and self-transcendence, effectively breaking that hyper-focused anxiety loop. You are disengaging your ego and engaging a more objective, observer self. I use this practice before any major decision or when I feel overwhelmed. Years ago, my company faced a potential lawsuit that felt like an existential threat. I was losing sleep, consumed by a dozen what-if scenarios. I stopped, went to a quiet room, and took the view from above. I imagined my small company on this small planet, in this vast galaxy. I imagined the billions of people who had lived and died, the immense struggles they had faced. I saw my problem not as the center of the universe, but as a tiny speck in the grand tapestry of existence. This didn't make the problem disappear, but it drained it of its terror. It became a manageable business challenge, not a soul-crushing catastrophe. I could think clearly and strategically again. Your practice for days 15, 16, and 17 is to integrate these perspective shifts into your daily routine. Morning. Memento. Mori. When you wake up, spend 1 minute contemplating the fact that you have been given another day. A day that is not guaranteed. Resolve to use it well, not to waste it on trivialities. Evening. View from above. Before you go to sleep, close your eyes and practice the view from above meditation for 3 to 5 minutes. Visualize your worries and stressors shrinking as your perspective expands. Let go of the day's burdens by seeing them from orbit. As you engage in these practices, ask yourself, are you living your life as if your time is infinite, sweating the small stuff and postponing what truly matters? Or are you living with a sense of urgency and purpose, focusing your energy on what is truly worthy of your limited, precious time on this earth? We have arrived at days 18 through 20. We have laid the foundation, framed the structure, guarded the gates, and cultivated perspective. Now, we must inhabit our inner citadel with a clear sense of purpose. This is the culmination of all our work, focusing on what the Stoics called the chief good, virtue. For the Stoics, things like wealth, health, and reputation were preferred in difference. They are nice to have, but they have no bearing on your quality of life as a human being. The only true good is a virtuous character, and the only true evil is a vicious one. An unbreakable mind is not just a resilient mind, it is a mind grounded in character. The 4 cardinal virtues of Stoicism are wisdom, justice, courage, and temperance. Wisdom, the ability to see the world clearly, to navigate complex situations with logic and reason. All the tools we've practiced, the dichotomy of control, managing perceptions, are expressions of wisdom. Justice, this isn't about law, but about how we treat others. It's about fairness, kindness, integrity, and seeing the good in our fellow human beings, even when it's difficult. Courage, not just physical bravery, but moral courage. The courage to stand up for what's right, to face our own flaws, to endure hardship with grace, and to speak the truth. Temperance, the virtue of self-control, discipline, and moderation. The ability to master our desires and appetites rather than being enslaved by them. Why is this so critical for an unbreakable mind? Because when your primary goal shifts from acquiring external things to cultivating internal character, you become invincible. The market can crash, but it cannot touch your integrity. People can betray you, but they cannot force you to be unjust in return. Your health can fail, but it cannot diminish your courage. Your life becomes a stable platform built on the bedrock of your own choices, not the shifting sands of external circumstance. Neuroscience tells us that acting in accordance with deeply held values and a sense of purpose is a powerful source of well-being. It activates reward pathways in the brain in a more sustainable way than a fleeting pleasure. When your actions are aligned with your character, when you act with courage despite fear, or with justice when it would be easier to be selfish. You are reinforcing a positive self-concept and building a kind of psychological capital that no external event can bankrupt. I've seen this be the final, transformative piece for so many people I've mentored. They come to me seeking resilience to handle the pressures of their high-powered careers. They learn the Stoic tools and become more effective and less stressed. But the real shift happens when they stop seeing these tools merely as a means to success and start seeing them as a means to becoming a better person. A CEO I worked with began to measure his day not by the stock price, but by whether he had acted with justice toward his employees, with wisdom in his decisions, and with temperance in his reactions. His company became a better place to work, his family life improved, and he found a profound sense of peace that his previous success had never provided. For our final active practice, on days 18, 19, and 20, you will conduct a virtue review. Each evening, reflect on your day through the lens of the 4 virtues. Take out your journal and create 4 sections: wisdom, justice, courage, and temperance. Under each, answer 2 simple questions. 1. Where did I fall short of this virtue today? 2. Where did I successfully practice this virtue today? For example, under courage, I fell short when I avoided a difficult conversation with a colleague, and I succeeded when I spoke up in a meeting with an unpopular but necessary idea. This daily practice makes character building a conscious, deliberate process. You are no longer just reacting to life, you are actively shaping yourself into the person you wish to be. Ask yourself the ultimate question, the one Marcus Aurelius asked himself every day. Are you going to be a person who is a slave to circumstance, defined by what happens to you? Or will you be a person defined by your character, by how you choose to respond with wisdom, justice, courage, and temperance, no matter what happens? We have reached day 21. For 3 weeks, you have engaged in a rigorous process of mental alchemy. You have laid the foundation with the dichotomy of control. You have learned to be the architect of your perceptions. You have stress-tested your resilience through voluntary hardship. You have guarded the gates of your mind by disciplining your ascent. You have cultivated perspective with memento mori and the view from above. And you have centered your existence on the non-negotiable pursuit of virtue. You have, brick by brick, built the foundations of an inner citadel. So, what happens now? The most dangerous moment in any transformation is the belief that it is complete. Day 21 is not a finish line, it is a graduation. It is the day you stop seeing these practices as a temporary challenge and begin integrating them as a permanent operating system for your life. An unbreakable mind isn't a state you achieve, it's a process you live. It is a commitment, renewed each morning, to govern the only thing you truly control, the empire of your own mind. Think of it as a flywheel. The first few turns are incredibly difficult. It takes immense, conscious effort to get the heavy wheel of your old habits to budge. Practicing the control inventory, journaling your perceptions, taking that cold shower, it all feels unnatural and demanding. That was the last 20 days. But with each consistent repetition, you add momentum. The wheel begins to turn more easily. Eventually, it develops a momentum of its own. What was once a difficult, conscious choice becomes a near automatic response. A challenging situation arises, and instead of immediate panic, your mind's default becomes, "What is in my control here?" A negative event occurs, and the automatic first thought is, "What is the opportunity within this?" This is the point where the unbreakable mind becomes your natural state, not just an ideal you are striving for. My own journey did not end after a few weeks. It has been a practice of decades. The principles have not changed, but my application of them has deepened. The work is never truly done because life will never run out of challenges to test your citadel. There will be new market crashes, new health scares, new personal losses. The chaos of the external world is a constant. But if you continue this work, what will change is you. You will greet these challenges not with fear and fragility, but with the calm, fortified strength of someone who knows where their true power lies. You stop hoping for an easy life and start focusing on becoming a stronger person. So, from day 21 onward, your task is to systematize this practice. Don't abandon the tools, integrate them. Make your morning reflection a non-negotiable routine. Spend 5 minutes setting your intention for the day, reminding yourself of what is in your control and what your guiding virtues are. Choose one weekly hardship to keep yourself sharp. It doesn't have to be extreme, just a small, consistent reminder that you are the master of your comfort, not its servant. Continue your evening review. The day is the training ground. The evening is when you review the game film, learn from your mistakes, and celebrate your victories of character. The world will continue to be a turbulent, unpredictable place. That is a guarantee. But your inner world does not have to be. You have the blueprint. You have the tools. You have laid the foundation. Now, the lifelong, rewarding work of building continues. You are no longer the frightened resident of a house of cards, but the calm, confident sovereign of an inner fortress. And from within those walls, no external storm can ever truly break you. I will leave you with a final guiding question for the rest of your journey. Who will you be when everything you have is stripped away? The work we have done here is the beginning of your answer.